Brad, Mark said during the interview he kind of wanted to wrap it up quick and get you hired. What was that process like for you?
I tell you what, it was a quick one, that's for sure. Got a call earlier that day. Ended up being on a Sunday and had to turn around and drive down. Luckily, Indianapolis was only a 3-hour drive, so I was able to drive down, talk with him, with the staff, and glad I made a good impression and really excited to be here. You could tell the minute you walked in, there was a good energy and a good vibe. Obviously, as quick as it was hard to look into all the players they had on the roster, but you could tell they had talent at the outside linebacker position. Try to do a quick buzz of some tape. Obviously, it was nice to have access to that where I was coming from. So, ended up being a really good situation, a good interview. Obviously, it worked out for both of us, I think, and looking forward to getting really hands-on with these players.
Lonnie Deacon, Lonnie Demery, Kentucky Sports Report. Mark kind of halfway, didn't he? He said he had the greatest. He thinks he has some All-American linebackers.
Well,
have you seen that quote? Have you heard it?
I did. And that's what you want. You want talented guys that can make plays. And if you're afraid of that as a coach, if you're afraid of setting the bar high, in that regard, then you probably shouldn't be in this conference. And so I'm looking forward to that challenge and trying to elevate their game. Obviously, Coach Hood did a phenomenal job coaching those guys. They made a lot of plays, spent a lot of time in the backfield, in opponents' backfield last year. So if we can, we can hone in on some technique things, working on a little get off here, some more pass rush. I think they have a lot of talent in not just Josh, but Denzel. As we go through the cut-ups as a staff, you see all these guys pop on film and make plays, and even the Jamar Watsons, and really looking forward to working with Jordan Wright, and the list goes on and on. So again, really excited to get into the football stuff, from what you can see in the weight room. They're really getting after it, and again, there's a difference between the weight room, and then putting on packs. And so that's what spring ball is for. We'll start honing in on that technique this spring, and then once they get comfortable with that technique, hopefully it carries into fall camp. And then the biggest thing for a pass rusher or an edge setter, especially with a new coach, is just honing in on some of the nuances that I'm going to teach them. And it takes time. Sometimes there's sort of an uncomfortable stage, and you have to understand that as a coach, that, hey, it takes time. Let them get used to it. That's the beauty of spring ball. They'll have all those practices in the spring, and they'll have all of fall camp. So when that first game hits and we kick off against Central Michigan, they'll feel comfortable and ready to execute those, in a game situation.
Nick Roush, Kentucky Sports Radio. What's it like to go from playing for Coach Hood and working with him to kind of replacing him?
See that, and I would never use the word replacing. That's Coach is a mentor of mine. I told him the minute I walked in, very much of what I do and how I approach coaching, I've taken from him. I've always had the utmost respect. So it's definitely a different deal in terms of being a colleague. Mm-hmm. I was a GA there at Wake when he was still there as a DC, and so you sort of move past that stage. And but I'm really looking forward to working with him. Obviously, as a phenomenal family, he's a phenomenal coach, and you just turn on the tape and they've been coached. So that's what another thing that excited me is that I know I'm walking into a position group that are good guys, good players. They've been taught the right way. So now I can just sort of put my spin on it a little bit, and hopefully we can continue to elevate both their play, and then it helps elevate the whole play of the defense.
So the transition should be pretty seamless then for those guys.
Oh, absolutely. They'll know what to expect. My expectations will be very much in line with Coach Hood's expectations for him last year.
John Hale, Courier Journal. Did you want to get back into college coaching eventually, or did you think you were in the NFL for good? How did that all work out?
Well, and that's a great question, and obviously that was when you talk about the interview process, that was a question that obviously came up, and for me, the big thing about coaching is coaching, and for me, it's about fit. It's about the right fit for my family. It's about the right fit for me as a coach, the program in general, and let's be honest. When you're coaching in the SEC, you're working with NFL caliber talent, and I'm looking forward to working with these guys. I'm looking forward to trying to help them get to the next level, and I think that's why you get into coaching. You get into coaching to watch progression. I very much enjoyed my time in Indy, and I think when you look at the numbers and you look at the player progression, I think we've progressed players there as well, and you saw progression through. But I think you see it at a greater level in college. I think you can really see a guy jump from point A to point B, and in a fairly quick time frame. So again, I think you'll see guys take that next step even from the first day of spring to the last day of spring, and then they'll take another leap in fall camp, and then hopefully, when you turn on the film at the end of the next season, you'll say, okay, here's some guys that made some quantum leaps, and that's what we're going for. And some may be more quantum than others, but as long as they're progressing in the right way and moving in the right direction, then we'll be excited.
With a guy like Josh, who almost made the leap to the NFL, what can you kind of show him, since you have been there, to kind of tell him what he needs to do to prepare?
I do think that's where that helps. When you talk about my experience in the NFL, you end up having traction with those guys. You're not walking in just as a new coach from a new program, and now they're trying to feel you out, and they understand, okay, this guy has been there. He understands what he's looking for. I've obviously have friends around the NFL, so they'll understand and they'll respect the teaching that I'll give these players. So that's just another added boost to that entire room, not just Josh. But I think when he watches the drill tapes that I have, and you watch an NFL logo on the helmet, your ears perk, and you're a little bit more wide-eyed, and you say, okay, now I understand what I have to do. It's not just about being the best 50% of the time. I've got to be the best against everybody, and it doesn't matter how good a tackle may be from another program. Well, I was good on, in 8 of the 12 games, but the 4 games that I wasn't real good, that was the best tackle I faced all year. Well, that's not going to cut it. The best tackle, right, in college football may not crack the starting lineup, right, in the NFL. So they have to understand they have to be dominant every week, on every snap, on every play, and technique's not just a 1 or 2 down deal. You've got to be technically sound. You've got to play with effort on every down in the game. And if you're fading, right, then we got to get someone else in there, because you never know when that game-changing play is going to happen. And if that's the play you take off, that could be the difference between winning and losing, especially in this conference.
So do you automatically get every recruit from Rhode Island if they're
Yeah, I wish, but we'll see. Obviously, there's not many that come out of the state, but we will, for whatever ones that show up, we'll obviously spot recruit it there. But I am really looking forward to getting there and into that Mid-Atlantic area, because we've had a lot of good players from Jersey and Washington, D.C. and Maryland, and so hit the ground running there and see if we can't get some more.
How big of a change is recruiting going to be for you coming from the NFL?
Well, things have changed over the last 6 years in terms of the rules. I think recruiting is recruiting. It's about relationships. It's about knowing the high school coaches. It's about knowing the families and the players. And I think if they can relate to you, if they understand that you've got their best interest at heart, I mean, that's no different than when I was recruiting at the Air Force Academy or at Murray State, or even when we were back at Wake. Now, again, some of the rules have changed, but those are just, that's part of growth. And if you can't adjust and adapt, then you're not much of a coach.
What do you think they're on this, what do you think of their early signing period?
I think it's changed recruiting. You know, obviously it's moved all the time period up. I think it does offer some more leeway for misses, because now you're having to recruit earlier in the process and you can't see the full development of a young man. But that's just the way it goes. And whether it's recruiting, whether it's on the football field, different things move processes forward, and you learn to adjust and adapt. And if you don't, you die. If you do adjust and you do adapt, then you're successful and you get to places you want to get to.
Jen Smith with the Herald Leader. Was there any hesitation about going back to the college level? Did you ponder sort of staying at the professional level?
There were some possibilities to stay, and again, I think it goes back to the what I said before. It's all about fit for me. And it was about fit and family, and my wife and I, we had to sit down. We had to discuss all the possibilities. Obviously, this one came up quick, and you had to sort of make a quicker decision. But I'm blessed to have a phenomenal wife that's really supportive in everything we do, and we do everything together in that sense. And I think we felt this was the best move for us. And again, it had nothing to do with NFL versus college, but this was an ascending program with a lot of talent there at the outside linebacker position. And again, that's just that. That's potential, and we saw the potential, but now I have to come in and do my job and help those guys fulfill their potential. And then hopefully, you can see those guys playing on Sunday down the line in the future.
Anything else for Coach? All right, thank you, Coach.